Former Governor Larry Hogan is the Republican candidate for Maryland's soon-to-be vacant U.S. Senate seat. Now, recent polling shows one of the top issues for Maryland voters is public safety. Today, Fox 25's Mackenzie Frost sat down with Hogan to talk about his new plan to address violent crime concerns and boost law enforcement efforts.
Former Governor Larry Hogan, now the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate seat in Maryland. Hogan out with a new crime plan, touching on some of the same priorities he had while serving as Maryland's governor.
Crime has become the -- issue. I mean, it's been an important issue for a long time, and it's something that I focused on the whole time that I was governor.
When it comes to the #1 issue, you say you want to increase the penalties for repeat violent offenders. That was something that you attempted to do several years in a row while you were governor, working with lawmakers in Annapolis. You weren't successful in Annapolis to get that done. How would you see that plan through in Washington?
Well, that was the most frustrating thing, I think, about being governor, is that for 8 years in a row, we tried to do something about getting the repeat violent offenders and the violent criminals off the streets. And the legislature continued to refuse to do that. It's still a problem, and it's still the reason why we've got such a crime problem.
Hogan touching on this news conference in the summer of 2022.
Designed to take violent people off the streets.
Standing with the U.S. Attorney for Maryland, Eric Barron. That's where Barron's Al Capone style of prosecution really became known. Would you like to see that method utilized and implemented in cities across the country?
Well, there's no question it works well, and that's why we focused on it. That's why we hired all those federal prosecutors with state dollars. And I think the cooperation between the state's attorney, and when Ivan Bates came in, was working with Eric Barron with the money that we provided, getting federal agencies to work together and tackle some of these crimes, especially on gun crimes, where you can go after, take down some of these cartels and these criminal gang enterprises that are doing all the carjacking, that are responsible for a lot of the drug trade, that are responsible for a lot of the shootings and the killings, not just in Baltimore, but across the state in Prince George's County and in Montgomery County and elsewhere. But at the federal level, we should be putting more resources into law enforcement.
Hogan says if elected to Congress, he wants to offer more resources to law enforcement agencies across the country, an effort to refund the police, he says. Do you think that would help with recruitment efforts in police departments and law enforcement agencies that are struggling?
It's a huge problem right now, and part of that is funding, but part of it is simply people that normally would have an interest in going into law enforcement. You know, we're not giving the police officers the kind of respect and appreciation that they deserve, and they feel as if it's not as rewarding of a career.
Do you think there's the political will in Congress to address some of these issues and provide more funding for law enforcement agencies, go after repeat violent offenders, and really take a tougher on crime approach from Washington?
Well, I sure hope so. But, you know, I was up against a 70% progressive Democratic legislature in both houses in Annapolis. In Washington, it's pretty closely divided. So instead of trying to convince 70% of the people, I'll only have to convince a few to get a bipartisan bill done.
Another familiar item on Hogan's federal crime plan agenda. You've talked about holding judges accountable, holding prosecutors accountable. And that's something that we've talked about at the state level, but what would that look like at the federal level?
Well, so we pushed a judicial transparency bill at the state because the police officers were complaining that they were arresting the same violent criminals over and over and over again for the same crimes. Well, at the federal level, it's the same exact thing. We have federal judges that are prosecuting these federal crimes, and we do get the chance to confirm those folks and make sure that we're putting people on the bench that are serious about doing something about reducing the violent crime.
But what would that look like to hold the federally or Senate confirmed judges accountable? Would that be a review panel, or would there be an opportunity for the Senate to come back and perhaps revoke their confirmation? Or
I think when you're appointing someone to the federal bench, reviewing their record and making sure that you're putting people on there that are not lenient or soft on crime if you're putting them in the federal bench.
Isn't that what senators already do or should be doing?
Well, yeah, but I'm not sure, the folks that are making the decisions are holding them accountable, but I sure would.
As you travel around the state and continue this campaign, now that the primary is behind you, moving and looking ahead to the general, do you believe that this message, this focus on crime and violent crime and public safety will resonate with some of the Democrats that you need to win over in order to be successful in November?
There's no question about it. I think it's the #1 issue for Democrats, Republicans, and independents.
If that's true, why weren't you successful in getting some of these plans passed in Annapolis?
Well, because the legislators in Annapolis are completely out of touch with their constituents.
Hogan says if elected to the Senate, he wants to use the blueprint he had for Maryland and scale it up nationwide. All in an attempt to make communities safer across the country. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
And Fox 45 News reached out to Hogan's Democratic challenger in the upcoming general election, Angela Alsobrooks, for a response. So far, we have not heard back. I'm Mary Bubala. Thank you for watching. Here's another video for you to watch. Also, take some time to subscribe to our YouTube channel.